There's another concept that you can apply to your images called the rule of thirds. Now I know what you're thinking. Who knew there was all this mathematics involved in painting? And I always bring this up to people who think that what artists do for a living is easy and pretty laughable. And trust me, I get this a lot, not just from my own family and friends, but from other artists that I've spoken to. People think that, what we do is just sit down and draw and take out crayons and color things. I'm like, there's a lot of thought behind creating artwork, believe it or not. And then I break it down to the rule of thirds, and they're like, oh, okay. So just make sure you throw that out whenever somebody starts to give you a little grief about what you do. I do it all the time. And what I want to do now is talk about the rule of thirds. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I have my layout grid palette available. If you don't see this, just go to your window menu until you find that guy. And he's right here, the layout grid. And you can just put that back on by show layout grid. And when you enable the layout grid, you'll notice right away that we have the ability to look at your image sliced up into 3 sections here, which actually come to 9 sections. So even though it's called the rule of thirds, you have 9 quadrants here. The idea is that you want to get away from symmetry. A lot of people, typically new to art, believe that they should have everything in the center, when even in nature things are not very symmetrical. Only inorganic things such as buildings or machine-made things are usually symmetrical in some way or another. But even on the human body, one eye is slightly larger than the other, or one ear is slightly larger than the other, and that kind of thing. So what you want to do is you want to offset your image in a pleasing way so that the eye has focal points to lock onto. And that's a reason that the rule of thirds has these little intersections here. These lines intersect, and these are great places to put points of interest. For example, the moon. And not only on the line, but in the quadrants themselves. So I wanted the eye to right away go to this mask and figure out whether or not this mask is on a small island or is the island next to a gigantic mask. So this is the main area of interest. So my rule of third here is for your eye to snap to this region. And then you could place other points of interest like this little part of the island here, still offset from the center, as you notice. I have this little lagoon going into the island itself, but it's not in the center. Even the peak here is not in the center of the quadrant. And although after being in the industry for like 30 years, you kind of get a feel for where to put things without having a grid out. When you're starting out, you might want to just put this grid on and arrange your concepts so you can get things that are points of interest in the right grids.